We are thrilled to kick off this year with a very practical, hands-on type of an event that deals directly with you, which is building and expanding your career in performance improvement and instructional design, which isn't always easy to do. So before we dive in, though, I want to recognize Dr. Hanley, who is here, and Dr. Hastings, who couldn't be with us. In January, we rolled over to a new year and have new officers. I am now the president, and Nicole is our vice president, which means Dr. Hanley and Dr. Hastings have stepped aside. But without them, we wouldn't be here. They started us off in 2018 and wouldn't give up on it, and came to me as part of my dissertation and said, "Hey, we want to do this performance improvement project to actually revitalize our chapter and to relaunch it," and that's what we did, and it's been a great success. So we are very, very grateful for them, and I hope I can do just a little bit of what they've done and keep us moving forward. So tonight, if you've already hopped on the Miro board, you recognize that we're doing a little bit something new. We're trying to enhance our meetings and make it a little bit more interactive and give you information in one place so that we don't have to talk as much and we can get to the parts that you come here for, which tonight, that's for our career building panel. I'm going to share my screen for just a minute, and I just basically want to show you where we're at on the screen and how we're going to use it. And then I'm going to hand things over to Nicole. She's going to make a few announcements, introduce our speakers, and then we're going to jump right into building and expanding our careers. On our Miro board, you'll notice there on that cafe menu, the links to our agenda are available for you, and you can jump right to any of those areas directly from those links if you want to. We also included a job board, and these are just several jobs that we found for performance improvement or instructional design, and we wanted to share a few of those with you. We hope that we can continue curating jobs after this meeting that will be included on a job board for our monthly career building sessions. But for tonight, I think there's about, I don't know, 9, 10 jobs down there that are pretty good jobs. There's also a link there. You can jump down to meet the panelists. They have virtual offices that includes their full bio as well as their 321 information, which they'll share with you later. There's a PDF handout of this entire board, so don't worry about having to take notes or anything like that. It's right there in the welcome area, just above. If you want to see, that's the Handbook of Human Performance Technology. I did a quick screenshot of well, not a screenshot, I took a picture of my book. Audrey, who's not here, likes to call that the home safety device. Somebody breaks in, you just whack them with that book. But anyway, you can also go and meet the panelists just by jumping through, clicking the little arrow next to their image and go down there. So next, everyone is in the getting to know you screen where everybody's decorating. Can feel free to continue to do that while we go through the meeting. Again, the caveat is just to, give it a listen every now and then. If you want to follow someone on the screen, you just look up to the right here and just click on that person's image, and you will immediately start to follow them, meaning that wherever, like Joe is following me, wherever I go, he goes. And then there's announcements. Will be room 3, 4 will use the career panel, and then room 5 is our Q&A room. If you have a question and you would like to ask the panel, you can either post it in the chat or you can just grab a sticky note and pull it over and write your question there. You can do that at any time. And when we get to the Q&A, I think it's Nicole that's going to lead the Q&A. She'll grab those questions and we'll ask them there. And then finally, our after hours room. We'll let Jeff and Mike talk about that in a little bit. All right, so that's it. That's a quick, here's what we're doing. This is our little cafe area for the Miro board. Does anybody have a question about it while I'm on the board before I hop off and let Nicole jump in?
All right, that was awesome. I'm really excited. I love learning new tools, so I'm so glad that you kind of spearheaded this and kind of showed. I'm just mind blown. It's like Miro is so cool. I love learning new things. So just a couple announcements before we dig in. We're excited to launch what we're calling our virtual cafe, and so we're going to have monthly informal little quick little sessions where we can kind of network with each other, share jobs that we've found, share advice for each other on how to get a job or how to maybe advance to the next level of our career. So we're super excited about that. Um, Make sure you join and become a member so you can be like the first one to know about when it is. And so if you're not already a member, membership is free. You don't need to live in the Gulf Coast area. You can live anywhere. And they're all going to be virtual. So there's a link in the chat if you want to become a member, and we will send out those announcements to our membership list and then also on all of our socials. So feel free to stalk us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Our quarterly events, like the one you're at tonight, we're going to have the next one is May 16th. It's going to be our anniversary celebration. In our Miro board, it's the third section. You can see all the dates if you want to, just screenshot them or write them down. But May 16th is our next one. We're going to be talking about our first anniversary celebration, and we might have some kind of presentations from our membership. So that's going to be kind of cool. Later this year in the fall, we're going to have some AI and chat GPT sessions, and we're going to talk evaluation, everybody's favorite, right? But we need more tools for evaluation. So that's what our membership has asked for, and we are going to give a really cool evaluation presentation this fall. And so that's it for our upcoming events. And next on our agenda is our thought panels, our thought leaders. So I'm super excited to introduce our 4 panelists tonight. And we're just going to go down the list. I'm going to quickly introduce each one. And then after I introduce each leader, I'm going to ask them to, in 2 minutes or less, give us like top job advice. So we're going to start off with Jenny. So Jenny is the Director of Learning Technologies at GP Strategies. And in her role, she works directly with automotive clients. So everybody owns a car, right? And so she works as a strategic partner to drive technology integrations and enhancements that support the design, development, and implementation of learner-centric training and performance solutions. So truly performance improvement and instructional design. She's been there at GP Strategies for 4.5 years as and in her new role, Director of Operations and Technology, which recently got updated to Director of Learning Technologies. A little more concise. I like it. And before this, she worked as an instructional designer and performance consultant for GP Strategies on the same automotive account. And she was a senior instructional designer at Quicken Loans. Tax time, we all know about Quicken Loans and money. Awesome. For 12 years. Fabulous. So lots of experience, a wealth of experience here. So Jenny, if you could tell us in 2 minutes or less your top advice for a new professional just starting out in the field or somebody trying to maybe switch and advance their career and shake it up a little bit.
Are we looking specifically for career advice on this?
Actually, any words of wisdom.
Any words of wisdom? Um, in my opinion, and this is me, and you're gonna probably see this as my number one is trust your skills. You've gone to school, you know what you're doing. It really comes down to trusting in your ability and in what you know. You're not supposed to be the subject matter expert. That's why we have subject matter experts. And you really just need to be able to talk about how those skills can transfer into whatever it is the position's looking for. And so I think I have a habit of wanting to know everything, and I know that's a downfall for myself. So I've tried to share that advice with others is you don't need to, just be sure and confident in your skills and the rest will follow.
That is a great reminder. I think sometimes we get, sometimes we lose our confidence. That's a great reminder. That resonated with me. Thank you. So next up is Tiffany Brown. And Tiffany is the Assistant Director of Ambulatory Experience and Operations for Tampa General Hospital. She leads initiatives for the ambulatory division to ensure the elevation and consistency of patient experience efficient operations, and cultivation of a favorable health journey for patients. And so again, another true kind of performance improvement role there. She's currently pursuing a doctoral degree in performance technology at UWF and holds a Master of Education in Instructional Design and Technology and a Master of Science in Administration focusing on HPT. She has an extensive legal background and spent the first decade of her professional career working as paralegal. So wealth of experience there, a wide variety. So Tiffany, in 2 minutes or less, give us your best career advice, maybe for somebody new starting out or somebody transitioning or just advice in general.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a career pivoter. I have done it many, many times. And the way that I'm so successful at it is I always look at the skills that I currently have. I look at whatever job it might be that I'm trying to get, and then I see how I can match that to what they're looking for, and then bring something unexpected to them. So, for example, I have zero patient experience. I have never worked in a hospital setting before, but I was able to show everything that I did in my prior career with performance improvement, improving processes, operations, departments. It's all the same thing at the end of the day. You just have to make it transitional into a new career, and you have to show them that you have that skill set and you have something to bring to the table. And you have to be excited about it. Own what you do. Exactly like Jenny said, you went to school for this, you know your skill set, you know how to do this, but most people don't know what we do actually. They are used to process improvement folks, Lean Six Sigma, that mindset. So sometimes you might have to compete with that. And what I always try to do is just really focus on the people aspect and the projects that I've been successful with in the past, and really explain how I can bring that experience to them to solve whatever it is they might be trying to fix. So in this case, it was patient experience and operations. And even though I'm not quite sure about patient experience, I know how to do everything else. And if I can improve operations, the patient experience will follow. So you just have to be confident and don't let that imposter syndrome take over.
Yes, great advice. So this is 2 for 2 about the confidence. And I love your advice about, focusing on the people aspect rather than the process. Excellent. So next up, our third thought leader tonight is Joe Dunlap, and he has 20 years of experience from instructional designer roles to independent consultant to vice president of learning and development. And he's been doing designing, implementing, and measuring continuous learning and performance improvement solutions for executive leadership to frontline employees. So the whole picture here. In organizations such as NASA, the Air Force, Harley-Davidson, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Molson Coors. He's an unapologetic advocate for the transition of learning and development from the traditional learning to a more transformational performance improvement. He's written over 200 articles on LinkedIn and has been a keynote speaker and panelist in workshops, webinars, and podcasts. We love podcasts. So let's welcome Joe. And Joe, let's hear your 2 minutes of awesome advice, career advice for somebody just starting out or somebody transitioning to a bigger, better role.
Thank you. My advice would be stay true to the practice. At the end of the day, we're talking about humans. And there's a lot of shiny new objects out there in the world with technology and AI and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's still humans that perform in the organizations. They're the ones that move the needle. They're the ones that generate the revenue. And so that's what business is about, is creating profitability. So at the end of it, there's human errors that are always involved in some kind of performance problem. And by doing what we do and not getting distracted by those shiny objects and focusing on performance improvement, you'll find the problems in the system and the solution will be basically present for you.
I like that. Don't get distracted by the shiny objects. I feel like a lot of employers right now and companies are getting distracted by the shiny objects.
Oh, absolutely they are.
Awesome. All right. And our fourth thought leader tonight is Anthony Jason. And he is the Master Chief Marine Science Technician and has been in the Force Readiness Command Chief Rating Knowledge Master for the U.S. Coast Guard since 2019, before the pandemic. He holds the qualifications of instructor, master training specialist, instructional designer, performance analyst, and performance consultant. So again, that whole range for the HPT field. He oversees the enlisted rating advancement training system and rating qualifications review process, advising on performance improvement and training interventions for enterprise level projects. He's passionate about training, and he has worked as an instructor and course manager at the Coast Guard's Leadership Development Center. He's got certifications as a certified performance technologist, a disciplined agile scrum master, and a PROSI change management train the trainer, with various additional qualifications in training and education. All right, so let's hear your top advice for new or transitioning careers.
Thanks for having me. It's really cool. Great group of folks. I would say cast a wide net. I always say that every organization, every company needs us. They just don't necessarily know it, right? The terminology, what the job's called, you're not gonna like. When I first got my performance technology certification, I was psyched. I wanted to tell everyone, hey, I'm a certified performance technologist. All my mentors were, and that's what I was kind of striving to do. And when I was talking to people, telling them that, nobody knew what I was talking about. Even people at the ISPI conference, like I had that on my card, and they were like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And I'm like, is this what everyone says? Like, aren't we all telling each other like this is what we do?" And it's just not the case, right? So just cast a wide net. I've been passively looking to retire from the military for the last few years. So I've been talking to a lot of folks, doing a lot of networking. And you just gotta put yourself out there and just kind of ask. I almost say like, look at the organization first and then see how you can fit. And because it's probably not going to be this job that says performance technologist or human performance analyst. It's not going to be out there. But I guarantee you, once you look at that position and you explain the value and kind of what you can bring to the organization, they're going to be like, holy smokes, we need this person. So that's my advice to you.
Fabulous, and congrats on your upcoming retirement. Whenever is that coming up soon?
Yes, I'm officially going to be gone this summer. Like no turning back.
Well, thank you for your service, and I know this is probably like the most exciting part is the retirement.
Yes.
All right, so topic number one, we're going to talk about where someone can find a job for performance improvement and instructional design, and what types of job titles or keywords can we search for. And so I think, Anthony, you just kind of brought that up, like, we're going to need to get a little creative about job titles. So Tiffany, let's start with you. What advice do you have for someone on where specifically they can find a job, and what keywords can we search for?
Yes. So I've always been really successful. I start kind of down the performance improvement route. I'll, use those keywords on LinkedIn or Indeed. But lately, when I was looking for this new position, I looked more on the operations side. So I was looking for leadership level positions, assistant director, director, vice president level positions, because if you actually look at what they're looking for someone that can come in, turn around business operations, improve sales, redesign offices. And so while your resume might not immediately show that, maybe based on a title that you're in, or if you're a new grad, that's where you can really sell yourself in your resume and your cover letter by making those changes. So I have not limited myself. I really just look at leadership roles. Because or else you're going to, depending what you're looking for in your next stage in life, you may get pushed more in that manager or specialist type roles. So it just depends what you're looking for. So if that's what you're looking for, you can find it by looking at manager kind of mid-level, or if you want that higher level, I would start looking at director level positions, because all of them really are seeking somebody that can come in and improve things. Because that's what you do as a director, that you're over operations. That's what you're trying to do. And we all have the skill set to do that. And in my opinion, we do it better than the majority of people that may be applying to that job just with their MBAs or their business degrees. We actually have the human side, the psychology side. We know how to change people. And I think that's the biggest thing that you sell yourself on.
That is excellent. I think we keep getting a theme tonight, like keep focusing on the human aspect and the psychology. You make a great point. Um, Anthony, let's go over to you. What else do you have to add to this? Seems like you might be job hunting soon as well.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I like reaching out to recruiters, and also too, like if I see a company that I'm like, oh, this seems pretty cool, I'll try to look at people if we have any kind of connections, or maybe we went to the same college or whatever, and just reach out and say, hey, what's going on? I'd love to talk to you about your job and the organization. People love talking about themselves. I'm not one of those people, but believe me, there's a lot of them out there. And when you have that conversation, you can find those keywords that that organization uses, because they're all going to, we all know this stuff. It's all the same basic models and concepts all of us learned. They're just called different things. So everyone wants to put their spin on it and have their model and stuff like that. So having that conversation, you can say, okay, so like what models do you guys use, or what do you, stuff like that. And then when you go for those interviews, or when you tailor your resume and all that stuff, it's specific to what they want. So like in the Coast Guard, we have standard operating procedures, and we're like a, what I would consider an HPT purist type organization. So like I had a friend of mine that I went to grad school with, that she reached out to me. It's like, hey, I said this job opening, and I'm like, fantastic. We'd love to have you. Here are our standard operating procedures. Here's what our stuff is called. And it's, luckily for her, it's the same terminology, because most of us went to Florida State. But that, she absolutely crushed the interview, and she's been doing fantastic work with us for the last few years. But like she was literally speaking our language during the interview. So that's my advice to you.
That is excellent advice. Figure out the terminology that they use so you can literally speak their language during the interview, and then you don't have to worry about them trying to figure out how your skills transfer. That's pretty cool. All right, let's head over to topic two. Topic two is going to be talking about resume advice and skills that employers look for. So the official question is, what skills do PI, performance improvement, or instructional design employers look for when hiring new candidates? And with that in mind, with those key skills that employers are looking for, what advice do you have for someone crafting their resume? Let's go over and start with Jenny. So skills that you look for, and what do we put on our resume?
It's funny that you say that, because my team has had so much change over the past year that I've done quite a bit of interviewing. And it is kind of tricky, because it's not black and white. I'm looking, the roles I was looking for were not straight PI roles and stuff like that, because I'm looking for I'm looking for technology admins, people who will come in and learn the technology and administer the learning technology platforms and stuff like that. So do you get somebody with a gaming background or an IT background versus somebody who has that performance improvement and will look for ways to build the process out and streamline it for our learners? So it's kind of tricky when you're looking at that. So I think a good thing to do, and I keep looking back over to the Bureau board to remind myself of what your question was, Nicole. But the skills that I look for are, it's more competency-based skills, things that could be transferable. Do you have those people skills? Are you able to clearly communicate and use the basic technology? You'd be surprised. I actually had somebody that I acquired when I became a director who did not know how to look up meeting requests to see when people were available on their calendar in Outlook, and their job was a project manager to schedule meetings. So, it's certain little things you need to be able to maybe do, and you take advantage of LinkedIn Learning to get those skills if there's something that you think you might have a gap in. But at the end of the day, it's how do you tailor yourself to what they're looking for? If it says they're looking for somebody who knows articulate StoryRise, but you learned to Captivate in school, well, you say, I've learned e-learning software programs. And usually that skill, if you know one, you can pick up the other one pretty quick and vice versa, that kind of thing. So it's really not saying, oh, well, I only learned Captivate and they want Storyline, so I'm not eligible. That's not how you have to look at it. You have to look at it from the, okay, I know how to make e-learning. I might not know the platform they're using, but I can learn the platform. It's, do I know the basic process, how to do this job? Do I know how to talk to the customers? Do I know how to identify needs, do the evaluation? Doesn't mean that you're following their specific process for evaluation, but it, from your skills, but you do know that stuff. And so it's really being able to showcase that and highlight that and in your resume. And I know a lot of times we say tailor your cover letter, but you know, even at the top of your resume, if you use like an objective statement or a professional profile or some type of summary at the top, a professional summary of yourself, you can tailor that by pulling keywords from the job description to show that you understand what they're looking for, even if your skills are not a one-to-one translation for them.
Do you have any advice for somebody that maybe has never used Camtasia or Articulate or any of the, you know, softwares that a lot of corporations are using?
Again, I will say go to LinkedIn Learning. Most of those softwares, and I mean, you'd think I worked for LinkedIn the way I always keep saying go to LinkedIn. A lot of employers, I don't know about all of y'all, but our employer actually pays for us to have LinkedIn Learning as a supplement. A lot of universities, I think, have that accessible for their student body to fill those gaps in the, because you can't learn everything in school. You would never graduate if we tried to micromanage it down to every piece of technology and everything that's out there. But LinkedIn Learning gives you the ability to learn it at your pace. Most of these softwares do offer a trial period where you can go sign up and at least play in the software to familiarize yourself with it so that you can get some of those skills that you need to at least be able to show, yes, I understand what I'm doing. I understand the importance of having engagement, not just going blah, 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 blah for 30 minutes at a person and that kind of stuff, and how to utilize that. And honestly, depending on where you're applying, that what you need to do as an instructional designer might be different. At Quicken, I did end-to-end. I did the whole needs analysis through implementation, loading it in the LMS and launching it. When I started here as an instructional designer, I actually only did the upfront needs analysis and conceptualizing of the course. And then we have automotive writers who are subject matter experts who can come in and write about these products down to the minute details and everything that I would never grasp. I can be like, ooh, that car looks pretty, but don't ask me about what makes the mid-engine Corvette so much better as a Z06 versus, you know, the E-Ray or something like that. Sorry, I'm just gonna start rattling car terms off, but you know, I don't know that stuff. I can just be like, oh, I like the look of that car. We have writers to do that. So we don't have to do the development process. We have a programmer who programs it in the course. It helps that I know how Captivate and Camtasia and Articulate work, because then as I'm conceptualizing how I want the learners to interact with the content, I can say, I want to have this video here and I want to do a hotspot click here and I want to have this type of interaction here. And then the programmer will make that happen. So that's something else to take into account when you're looking at these positions. If there's a specific part of ADDIE, let's say, that you like to do, there are roles out there specifically focused on evaluation. We have data analysts who just handle all of the evaluation stuff for us here. But it really just depends on what you're looking for and where your passion lies, and then fill those gaps with LinkedIn Learning.
I love it. And I'm seeing the comment section. Everybody's talking like LinkedIn Learning is great. I send my people there. So definitely a popular idea. I love it. Joe, let's hear from you. What skills do you think performance improvement instructional design employers are looking for? And what resume advice do you have?
So I have actually three pieces of advice. First was actually a study done on LinkedIn about 5 months ago, and it said that less than 50% of applicants to a job meet 70% of the job requirements. So when you think about that, half of the people who apply for the job that you might be applying for probably are not going to exceed 70% of what it is that that employer is looking for. So if you think you only meet 70%, then you're actually in the plus side of applicants when you think about that. So don't limit yourself just because, as Tiffany was saying earlier, because you don't match all the skills. If you're coming in that 70% range, chances are you're actually in the top 10% of applicants for that job. Second is sell yourself on what is unique about you that's different from anybody else. Probably the best resume that I ever saw when I've hired is somebody wrote a resume to me and he said 90% of the people who are going to apply to you are going to talk only about instructional design and learning. I want to talk to you about performance improvement, and immediately got my attention. I called him up within an hour and said, let's talk, because nobody else was coming to me with that line. He was literally thinking outside of where it is that most people were actually focusing on how they were going to apply for that job, and more or less probably actually how they would practice that job. And third, and this may sound strange, but if that person has social media, go out and check out their social media. See how they present themselves to the world. If they have a TikTok account or Facebook or whatever else, especially TikTok, and I like this, I mean, I've used it for learning purposes, but if they actually have a flow with a true structure of how they're presenting themselves with whatever content they're doing, you're getting some insight into that individual's capabilities.
My wheels are spinning. I'm thinking maybe I need to go do like a professional TikTok account.
There you go.
Interesting. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people, you always see in the news, people are getting in trouble for like, what's on their TikTok account, but I never thought about using it in a professional way. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Anthony, let's hear from you. What kind of skills are employers looking for? And what resume advice do you have?
So kind of like what I said earlier and what everyone's been saying is tailor your resume to what they're looking for, like to the job description. Don't embellish or anything like that, but speak to those skills you have and how they translate directly into what they're looking for. What I can tell you, a lot of my, because I've been in the Coast Guard for over 22 years, so a lot of my friends have been retiring, and they're applying for lower level positions. And once they do that interview process, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, like we got something else, that would be more suited for you. So like one of my knowledge managers, he applied for just a instructor position at an IT company. And once they heard like how we kind of train instructors and all the stuff he did with knowledge management, they're like, we want you to go out and not just be an instructor, but we want you to go out and teach our instructors how to be instructors, go out there and evaluate them and look at the curriculum and things like that. Because what I've found, and a lot of people I went to school with, they kind of started out doing instructional design and that type of work before they had any kind of background in it, right? They kind of fell into it, they started doing it, and then once they got the education, they found the passion for it, then they are in these higher level roles where they're overseeing folks doing that type of work. But I can tell you that the best thing about my job is fixing problems. Like, I absolutely love it. Like enterprise level projects is like, and that's not something I really saw myself kind of wanting to pursue. But once people can kind of see that you can do that, they're like, hey, we want you to lead this team, or hey, we want you to look at this problem, or something like that. So just like I said earlier, cast a wide net, but once you go to pull the trigger, make sure it's specific to what that organization is looking for. Yeah, and then just sell yourself. Like I said, everybody needs us. And I'm not just saying that, they do. They just don't know it. Like, because, once we get in there and they start seeing us apply these things, they're like, oh, yeah, this is pretty awesome. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I like this idea of, casting the wide net, but then like really hone in on your, what makes you unique and specific. Be specific. It's really good. Tiffany, what advice do you have for skills and resume?
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I can share my screen real quick and just kind of give an example of how I've transitioned my skills in a resume. I'm gonna see if that works. Can you see my resume? Maybe.
Yep.
Yes, that looks
Yay!
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So, people have really short attention spans, so you want to really make sure that you grab their attention and it doesn't look like everyone else's resume. So one of the things that I did was make sure that my initial profile really honed in on what Anthony was saying, what we know how to do, what we can bring to the table. I took my contact information out since we're recording this, but really hitting those top skills, the keywords that the employers are going to be looking at, any key technology, your education right here on the front so they can see it. When I actually got my current position, I actually didn't have all these highlights. I just had my paragraph here, and it intrigued the person who was going to review my resume. He wanted to know more. This is a more detailed resume if I was trying to explain what I did to someone that really didn't understand it. So, even though I was director of faculty affairs, that doesn't sound anything like performance improvement. However, I had to get in there and restructure that entire office to actually make us be able to hire physicians to work for our practice plan. And so that's where I really highlighted under performance improvement highlights all the key things that I did using, lots of action words, lots of terminology that's going to pique people's interest. And then if you're somebody like me before I got my degree, I had a really weird title. Academia gives you the worst titles in the world. So I had this random evolving role. And, somebody would just see senior paralegal and say, this girl isn't qualified to be a director. So I had to really break that down and, show that it was an evolving role. I had a project manager piece of my role. This is what I did. I was also a SharePoint administrator. So, i.e., I know how to work technology. I'm going to be able to be friends with your IT people. Little things like that are very important. And then, any other positions that you had, just try to do high level highlights that you can tie back to other things. And then, of course, if you have education, give some information on that. But I always try to make sure that my resume doesn't look like anybody else's, so it'll grab attention. And then, of course, tailor your cover letters. And then when you get in the interview, really shine, because they don't know that they need us. But once we get in there, we're pretty hard to replace because of the skills that we have.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm such a visual person, and so just seeing that, and I really like the subtle use of color. That's really cool. And so I think a lot of advice that we hear over the years is like not to make your resume long, but you made a good point. You're going for that director role, you really need to sell it and really show like how your previous roles transfer. So that was powerful. Thank you. Looking at topic 3, which this
Nicole?
actually is a good segue. Yes.
Can I just jump in one quick comment about
absolutely.
your resume comment? It really depends on where you're going to. Like to Tiffany's point and to what you said, the higher level role, it makes sense to have those more pages. But then if you are looking at an academic career, which I don't think that's kind of the focus of this conversation, they do a lot different for the way that's stylized and how many pages, and longer is usually better if you're looking for a role in academia. Just mentioning that because not sure what our group here is looking for, if it's all industry or not.
So in your opinion, for industry, like that, the resume that long maybe wouldn't pass maybe at your job?
What Tiffany had is perfect, like for the level that she's going for and everything like that. But I'm saying, like, if you were to go for a position like Jeff or Holly have right now, you would have something more robust that includes your publications and your service and all of that kind of stuff, in addition to the type of information that Tiffany just shared in her resume. So it would actually
So
be
an even longer one.
Right. That's so it kind of depends on the field you're going for as well.
And so you said that you've been hiring lately. What's the trend that you've seen in some of the roles you've hired for, like short resumes or long resumes?
More of the 2 to 3 pages. I have had one that was like 15 pages, but I think it was the auto-generated one from LinkedIn, and that person had like a lot of temp positions. So there was like, and it doesn't come out clean formatting from LinkedIn, the way that it pulled it. usually with mine, they're mainly 1 to 3 pages maximum. But again, I was looking for a very specific, I'm looking for a project manager. I'm looking for more of that entry level position, not at a higher level position. So those would be more of the people who would probably be at the 1 to 2 page level versus a mid to senior level, like most of the panelists here.
Perfect. Thank you. I always learn new things about resumes. You always read on LinkedIn, you know, every recruiter has a LinkedIn and they always give like free advice. And, you know, sometimes you see keep your resume on 1 page, and sometimes you see, you know, have a 5-page resume, have a 15-page. So it's always good to get, you know, good opinions from people that have just went through it or are currently hiring. Looking at topic 3, so we're looking at how you can translate your prior experience. So like Tiffany just showed us with her prior experience in like being a paralegal, how you can translate that into industry terms. And so this could probably be a whole topic for an entire hour long. we could probably have a whole session on just that. But let's start with Joe. Tell us like some tips or strategies. How can a professional translate prior experience into, you know, current industry terms?
And I'm going to echo what everybody else said before, is you kind of have to look at that job description and that organization to understand what they're doing so that you can put it into their terminology, you know. So in my case, I work in manufacturing. So they speak a lot about, for instance, lean, you know, lean startup, TWI. So when I crafted my resume and had those meetings with them before I was hired, I put my background into that terminology so they understand how that fit into their practices. You know, same thing if a company's working agile or any other mode. You know, we talk about digital technology and digital transformation. If you can more you can understand about how they operate and what their focus is, especially their objectives, and you can better tie your resume into those things, you're now talking their language.
I like that. Talking the language. I think we've heard that a couple of times. This seems to be a common theme. Do you have any advice for maybe how somebody might find that?
Well, my suggestion is you join the industry groups. So in my case, within manufacturing, I belong to a number of small manufacturing industry groups. And so therefore, I've become much more versed in what the language is that's being used. So therefore, I can speak that language when I'm talking to the president, to the CEO, to other operational leaders across of our plants. When they're talking about their particular product measures, quality measures, things like that, I understand more about what they're talking about and how I can now translate that into performance improvement solutions. So understanding what it is that they're actually after helps you make that transition to when you talk about this, when they talk about human-centered design, we're talking about human performance improvement, right? Those kind of things. When they talk about user-centered design, well, that's what we do as well. You just have to figure out what are they saying and how do you translate that? When they talk about skills, often what you're talking about is foundational learning in their perspective. It's not performance improvement. It's how do I learn how to JavaScript or something like that? And that's like, well, that's a great place to start, but what does the finish line look like? Because I could build you a course on anything. That is not going to get you to the finish line. It's going to get you started in the race.
Very good. Let's go to Tiffany. Give us some advice on translating that experience into industry terms.
Yes, actually, since everybody likes it so much, I'm going to share my screen one more time to actually show you that director position. It just happened to be on my desktop, so I think this is really helpful. So hopefully you can see the job description that was for my director role that I previously had. And so when you're looking at a position like this, because normally I would have never even clicked on director of faculty affairs, that has no interest to me. But what I did find interesting about this position when I had it is the top couple things that they were looking for. So somebody who can plan and implement change initiatives. Hello, we do that all day long. Streamline process workflows, create new innovative programs. So all of this should just be like lighting up, you know, little sparks inside of you because you know you could do all this. Anybody on this call could have probably done this job because of what they were looking for. You know, being able to project manage, being accountable for things, being able to lead and mentor. You know, when I first took this position, I had never led a team before. That was actually one of the things that senior executives had told me that the only thing they were concerned about is that I had not led a team. I ended up leading a team of 15 people to completely change their roles and didn't lose anybody in the 4 years that I was on in that role. And that's because I knew how people operated and I knew how to motivate them to do what we needed to do to improve. So just, look at the description and see what you could pull out, because you'll know when you're reading the responsibilities if you have something that you can bring to that role. And then this is where in your cover letter and your resume, you pull out these terms and you match it to what you do. So don't always look at titles, because nobody titles things what they really should be titled. Really look at the responsibilities and figure out if you can match things in there that is going to make you very valuable. And as soon as you get their attention, then you have to wow them in the interview and really show them that you know what you're talking about. And this is how you can change their organization if they let you.
Very nice. So we've got, join some groups to learn the industry terms, and then, look at the job description and really pull out those words there. Ginny, what else? I know you were just kind of talking in the comments, like you want to change your job title. Like, so job titles, I know you just had one at your job. So maybe share a little bit about that.
Actually, I'm glad my job title changed, because after I updated my LinkedIn profile to say Director of Business Operations and Technology, I got hit up by so many people trying to sell me IT solutions. It's like, I don't care about your, security and desktop alerts and stuff like that, unless I can use it in a learning capacity. I did think the desktop alerts might be able to be used in a learning capacity, but there, I get a lot of sales calls because of that. So changing it to just say learning technologies, hopefully I get less sales calls. And they're more from third-party platforms like Promote or Trivia or Quantum 5 or something like that. But I think the thing with the job titles is, to Tiffany's point, and I think Anthony and Joe have also mentioned this, what is put out there, they don't necessarily know what they're asking for. I can tell you that I shared with Lynn an instructional design role to add to the job board that we're hiring for here. And that instructional design role would work completely different than another instructional design role in our company. But the job descriptions would look very similar because there's some kind of uniformity in the language that they use throughout the organization. So it's one of those things where you got to just kind of trust in yourself. And if it's something that you're interested in, like we have a position, there was a lot of confusion. There was a position posted for a manager of learning operations. This is why I changed my job title, because they just hired this person as manager of learning operations. And the second bullet point specifically said that the director of learning technologies, that'd be me, is reporting to this person. I was like, but my job title is business operations and technology. So there was a lot of confusion. And I'm like, are they replacing me? Until I read the job description. So it's really looking at those details and understanding what the need is. And then just, you have all those buzzwords from school and just translating those into the keywords that they're using. So if they say, oh, you know how to make web-based training. Yeah, I have skills. I can show you how I've done that. And then what I did for my first instructional design role, earlier in the comments, I don't know if anybody noticed this, they thought it meant I made things pretty. They really thought that an instructional designer was a graphic designer when I first moved into that role. And so it was a lot of educating them and showing them what I did. So creating a portfolio of your work that you've done. If you're not in the field right now, then, and there's proprietary information that you have to be careful of when you're creating these portfolios, but anything you're doing for school can be put into that portfolio to show that, yes, I know how to develop an engaging e-learning type of thing. I do know how to do this. And then that can help with that translation. And I really do like Tiffany's example. I've never seen a resume set up like that. But honestly, that is like the clearest cut way I can think of. Thanks, Tiffany, for that. I'm going to steal it. That you can translate your skills It's like, oh, they're looking for performance improvement. Let me show you how this was performance improvement versus just saying what your typical day-to-day tasks were. So, and then the thing about my job title is because nobody knows what we do for a living, I like to just say, okay, well, I'm the maker of things or the innovator of solutions and stuff like that. That's why I want to always make up my job title.
I love that. It's, they tell us so much in all of our, coursework throughout, the master's program or the, doctoral program, that there's like an identity crisis in the field. And I didn't really realize it until job hunting started. And I think you really, brought that home clear with the job title, right? So definitely an identity crisis with the field in terms of like, how do we find these jobs? What are they called? And then, our shifting job titles. It's crazy.
And then we don't even know what to call ourselves in the field because a lot of programs are changing to learning science versus instructional design versus EdTech. That's a whole other rabbit hole we don't have time to go down.
Right. So our fourth topic is future trends, but I think what we're going to do is close out the formal part of our meeting. So I'm going to turn it back to Lynn. And then when we have our after hours, the after hours is kind of like our informal time. We can chat about future trends when we get there. And it looks like everybody's been answering questions as we go, which was fabulous. This was an excellent chat group. I love how chatty everybody is. Like every question kind of got answered as we went through. So Lynn, I'm going to turn it over to you for a closeout. But if, feel free everybody to stay on if you can, because the real fun happens during the after hours.
Thanks. And thank you guys. It was such a great meeting. I didn't even realize that it is 6:58. And I think that I was assigned to keep time. So I did a great job of that. Thank you very much. I will not put that on my resume. Thank you all for joining us. And I hope you can stay for a little bit longer. As Nicole said, we continue our meetings for 1 hour following this, which is called after hours. It's just an informal conversational style time. We are a community of practice. So this is another one of the ways that we try to get together as a community and just learn from each other and continue to grow together. Does anyone from our group have anything that they would like to share or say before I hand it off to Mike and Jeff?
I just wanted to say fantastic meeting and thank you for the introduction, Lynn. You and Nicole have done such a fantastic job with this chapter, and it's just so exciting to see everyone online. So sorry I was the square there before being able to hop on the computer. So it was just so fantastic. It's awesome to see everyone. And again, just Lynn and Nicole, such a fantastic job organizing this for tonight.
Thank you. And thank you, Nicole, and everyone else. You can look through the Miro board and find out all the information if you want more information about the chapter, so I won't waste our time talking about that. So now, without further ado, I would give you Mike and Jeff for our after hours conversation. And again, thank you all for coming. It's been a great, great time tonight.
Thank y'all. And just to briefly discuss what this is, it's an opportunity for everybody to talk. Like it is a community of practice. Interesting things. I'm gonna embarrass David Dick, but David Dick is like IDT royalty and he's here, and Paul does so much amazing stuff that I get the opportunity to read about. Sarah, I know, is in the Tampa Bay hospital area, and Tiffany is in the Tampa hospital area. And I was like, are y'all friends? Like, do y'all know each other? So it's this kind of thing where you have the opportunity to kind of get to know each other more and chat about the things you're doing. Of course, talking about anything that we just talked about. If you have any things to add to it, and I'm so fortunate because I get to read what Paul talks about, and I get to read what Sarah talks about and what Randall talks about. So I kind of know this stuff. But if they want to talk about these things, it's a great time to kind of introduce yourself and your experiences as well.
Hey, Jeff, I'll take you up on that. I would add one more thing about landing a job. And that is beyond your resume and beyond your keywords and all of that, a personal reference trumps everything. And so any effort that you can put into finding a contact, and even if you've got to introduce yourself through 3 other people to get to them, you know, the fact is people in this field are nice. And you know, if you can get to someone, talk to them about the company, well, number one, they may give you great intel, but number two, if I'm hiring and I've just received the usual blizzard of monster resumes, the one person that someone that I know knows and says something about it, that one's moving pretty close to the top, and I'm going to read it. And so it's worth the effort to find out, does my network include someone who works for this organization, or can I make my network include someone like that? So that's effort well spent.
Well, I always keep it a little bit lighter in this one, so I want to ask Jen, Tiffany, Joe, and Anthony or Jason, what's the worst thing you see people do? Because, you know, some people unintentionally do it, but some you're just like, oh my God, I wish they wouldn't have done that. Besides calling you at home on your cell phone or showing up at your door.
Wingdings font.
If anybody replies in Wingdings font and they get to you in the interview stage, Jeff, there's a problem with your recruiting and screening process. And I don't think you should be making faculty decisions for UWF if you're looking at Wingdings.
Right. I look at everybody's stuff.
That's very kind of you. I don't know about everybody else. I work very closely with my recruiters. When I was hiring, I wrote the job descriptions to make sure they were meeting what I specifically wanted for the position. Like I said earlier, we have a lot of different job descriptions, and I would take 5 of those and munch them together to get to where I actually had what I wanted on paper. And then I would explain to my recruiter how I wanted to vet the individuals in their phone interviews before they would actually bounce the resumes to me. And then I would review the resumes and make a decision on whether or not to continue with the interview from there. So it's really working with your recruiters from an industry perspective and making sure you clearly know what you're looking for in your job resume, in your job description, if you're the one posting for the position. If you're applying for the position, take advantage of those ones that say contact the recruiter. As I think it was Joe that was mentioning this, you know, the person who comes in with the referral, you're more likely to talk to them. It's like, talk to the recruiter, ask them what they're looking for, ask for clarification. Then you can tailor your resume to answer those questions that you had to meet their needs and maybe have yourself stand out even more. Did I answer your question, Mike? I feel like I start babbling.
But I was going to see if Joe or Tiffany or Jason had anything else that they've seen that's like, oh, that was probably not a good idea. I can give you one. My wife's a veterinarian, so I can talk about her because she's not down here in the shed of wonders. So she got 2 job offers recently because veterinarians are really hot right now. She was going to tell the second recruiter or the second local vet that she was going to wait until she heard from the military vet if she wanted that job, and then she'd take his job. And I was like, sweetie, I don't think you want to send that in the thank you letter. So, you know, so it was it's hard giving advice as a husband, but I thought that was probably good advice. But do you see any other big mistakes like that are out there that you're like, wow, that was something you know, she cares about people, so she wanted the local guy to know to keep looking. But I said, I don't think he'd hire you after that if you told him that.
I will tell you the worst experience I ever had with a recruiter is with a candidate is when their mother called me after the interview to tell me how wonderful their child was and why I should hire them. And when I didn't, she called me back again to tell me what a terrible mistake I had made.
I thought that only happened on Reddit.
Happened in Joe's world. I'll tell you that. I will never forget that.
That's good.
Never forget that.
I guess my only additional thing, Mike, is just this is so important. I actually saw a job the other day. They had very strict instructions of how they wanted you to apply. And they actually wanted you to send an email a very specific way, but then also call and leave a voicemail. And so my husband was, when he saw that ad, he said, why would they want you to do all that? And I said, well, it's LinkedIn with an easy apply. Hundreds of people are just going to apply. But in my opinion, if the recruiter's checking the voicemail to see who said, hey, I sent you over my resume, number one, you followed all the instructions. You did exactly as I told you to. And now I don't have to filter through 100 different things. So it wasn't exactly a bad thing, but it could have been a bad thing if people weren't paying attention. You could miss out on opportunities. I know that when I used to post jobs, I was very explicit about posting your resume to me as a PDF. And if you gave me a Word document, that wasn't what I asked for. And so just little things like that where people can make mistakes. So since we're still talking about career advice, that would be something I would watch out for, because I think with all the bots and everything else that's been happening, folks are getting a little more creative with what they're writing on how they want you to apply. And I would follow that to the letter.
Yeah, that'll be a question if we have time later about the AI bots that generate the resumes and the ones that put out the things. And do you actually talk to people anymore? But before we do that, I want to give Jason a chance, because in the military you had to see some fun stuff, man.
Yeah, I was trying to think of one I could say.
You actually could share.
But I did remember a lady wearing a Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt, which stuck out at me. Like I could not get that out of my head. All I was thinking is like, why is she wearing a Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt? And